Morning's class. I'm going to start in hero's pose. So we're going to take the block about midway down the mat, portrait style. Fingers to the floor, knees together, feet out wide, and then slowly sit back, just using your fingers to support you a little bit as you come in. You're going to be here for sort of 5 minutes or so. So we'll spend a little bit of time just breathing in easy and learning to accept the situation we find ourselves in with the knees and the ankles, and allow the hands to just sit into the lap and breathe. Try and let those shoulders relax a little bit as well. We'll stretch the shoulders out a little bit and the neck at the same time. We'll drop the chin in towards the chest. And taking some very slow neck circles. We'll draw the chin towards the left shoulder. Allow the eyes and the head to walk slowly up the wall to the ceiling. Slowly go across the ceiling. You can breathe as many times as you need to down the opposite wall to the floor. And then just catching the right shoulder out of the corner of your eye as you bring your chin back towards the center. Reverse up. And really just noticing how those neck muscles feel. Are they gliding or are they a little bit gritty? It'll give us an idea as to whether we've got stiff neck or not. And the shoulders, hopefully they're feeling good. Allow ourselves to lift back up with the head. We'll take the arms out to the side as we breathe in and up towards the sky. Try and keep the ribs down a little bit, belly drawn in. Allow the hands to move out to the side as you exhale gently. Now we are trying to keep the shoulders low, even though the hands are meeting above the head. So as soft as you can be through the shoulders. It's very easy for the shoulders to sort of reach up around your ears. Just try and let them relax down a little bit. So we're not pushing, we're not pulling, we're just trying to yield a little. Now, let the hands come down to the side of the thigh and lean forwards a little bit. Move the knees a little wider so they're more sort of hip distance apart. And tuck the toes underneath. And move the block from underneath. Just take that out to the front of the mat. So getting a little bit of a toe stretch if you're able to. If it feels comfortable, you can come higher up. Just take a little bit more direct force down into those joints, into the toes. Lean forwards. And sit down onto the bootlaces completely. So heels into the sitting bones. Now lift up onto all fours. And just wriggle the feet around and roll the ankles about a little bit so the feet are off the ground, just pivoting on the knees. And then we're going to come down into child's pose. I'm going to take the knees wide, bring the toes back together, bootlaces down, slowly sit back onto the haunches, and then walk hands forward so the belly goes down first, chest, and the forehead come down last. Just allowing the arms to be out wide as the mat, so a little more than the shoulders. And again, just drawing the shoulders towards the back of the mat. So still keeping the arms outstretched, straight arms. This time a concerted effort to try and position the shoulder blades towards the bottom end of the mat. Just getting used to that, a little bit of a muscular contraction. Drawing the muscles in a different way to how they normally hunch up around your ears. And allow yourself to lift up a little bit towards the front of the mat, take it into a side bend, really just moving gently into that right side. And then carefully over to the opposite side. We'll come back to the center and lift ourselves into down dog. So knees underneath, shoulders over the wrists. Allow the knees to lift first and then open the legs out a little wider if your stance needs to change. Making sure the hands are flat to the floor. And just have a little rock around from side to side. You can bend the knees if that feels good. I'm going to slowly walk the hands towards the toes, coming into the back of the mat. I'm going to take the feet a little wider than the outside edge of the hips and allow myself to rock a little bit from side to side. So I'm going to keep the fingertips on the floor and the ribs and the thighs are touching. I'm going to allow myself to bend one knee, move the hips over and just rock a little bit from side to side. If you have problems with the sciatic nerve, that would not be a good thing to do. Allow yourself to keep still on the center line. But if you're able to bend one knee and straighten the other, it can be a nice way of just stretching out into those hamstrings in a slightly different way. And then I'm going to come into effectively a dangle. So again, if you've got bad back issues, keep your fingers on the floor, give yourself a little bit of support. But if you're okay, allow your hands to come around the elbows, make a little ledge for your forehead or the top of the crown of the head to rest on your forearms. And from here, we'll release the hands to the floor again. I'm going to ragdoll out. So keeping the shoulders and the head low, squat a little deeper, draw the belly in, round your spine up. Allow yourself to lift up. Come a little more in towards the center of the mat. And allow ourselves to just start to move the right arm around into nice big juicy circles. And then we'll do the same on the left side. So getting used to the idea of turning the body, moving through the knees, the hips, just changing the balance through the feet a little bit, trying to keep the knees soft. We'll see if we can take both hands, one in one direction, one in the opposite, just rolling them around. And the opposite way. And slowing down. And then we come back to a steady position. Bring the hands onto the hips. Allow ourselves to make some nice big hip circles. So kind of churning the mill. Just gently pop the hip out all the way to the left and behind out towards the right. Circle around as the hips come forwards. Again, we're just getting used to moving the weight around a little bit through the body. And then we'll see if we can go the opposite way as well. And all those little sticky points in the hips, maybe the lower back muscles, and a nice warm up. Back to the center a little bit. So we'll let ourselves walk into the front end of the mat. Feet hip distance apart and parallel. Bring the hands in towards the heart. On the exhale, we hinge forwards. Open the knees, weight to the toes, just as we always do. Fingers to the floor, take a breath, and we'll send the right foot back into a lunge. If you want to be at a nice deep lunge, so a very straight back leg, we'll step on the fingertips. So the chest is lifted a little bit. We'll let the shoulders relax away from the ears. Makes the whole thing a little more pleasant to be in. We'll send the tailbone and sitting bones. We'll try and press those towards the back of the mat with that back heel pressing out. We'll keep the belly drawn in a little bit. We'll take a breath, push off the big toe into the forward bend. Hands come onto the hips, and we'll let ourselves lift up again. Bring the hands in towards the heart. And exhale down. Fingertips on the floor. Send the left foot back into that deep lunge. We make fingertips nicely lined to the front foot. And push off the big toe, forward bend. Hands onto the hips and let ourselves lift. Take the hands high this time and breath in. Hands through the heart. And exhale down to the floor. Moving into the lunge again with the right foot. Dropping the heel in this time, we'll bring the hands onto the front thigh to open up into our warrior two. Take a nice breath in. Bring the hands to the heart. Down to the floor. In the back heel. Step back into the forward fold. Hands onto the hips. And let ourselves lift. We'll take the hands high again. Through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Left leg back into the lunge, deep. Heel drops in. Hands on the front side, just checking your knees over your ankle as you open your arms. Hands into the heart, breathing. Exhale down to the floor. Spin the back hip from the lunge to the forward bend on the exhale. Hands onto those hips and lift. Sit hands to the sky again. Into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Take a breath. Right foot back into the lunge. Drop the heel in for the warrior two. This time we'll bring the hands alongside the body. Taking the right arm forwards, we cartwheel up. Take a breath. Hands into the heart, down to the floor we go. Spin the back heel. Push to the forward bend. Hands onto the hips. And lift. Again, we'll take high with the hands. Through the heart. Down to the floor. Left leg back into that deep lunge. Drop the heel in. Hands alongside the body. Semi-lift. And float that left arm forward and up. Hands into the heart. Down to the floor we go on the exhale. Spin the heel, breath in. Push on the exhale for that forward bend. Hands on the hips. Inhale on the way up. Hands to the sky. Through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. This time we'll step back into down dog. Okay, we'll come into the front of the mat, step whichever leg you prefer into a forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we'll lift up. Bring the hands into the heart. Soften the knees over the toes. We're going to step the right foot back into the lunge. So as deep as you can. Drop the heel in and open into your warrior two. Now bring the hands into the heart. Rotate your chest and your hips towards the front of the mat. Lean out over the front leg. Press the right hand forward, left hand to the back of the mat. Advancing warrior. And then float your left hand forward so both hands are in line. Take a little breath. Allow yourself to lift up. And spin your back heel towards the sky. Bend to the elbows. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Elbows come down a little bit. And then we'll inhale high down to the floor. Take a little breath and step back to that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we'll lift. Hands into the heart. Soften the knees. Weight to the right. Left foot into the lunge. Check your balance. Warrior two. Hands to your heart. Rotate toward the front of the mat. Advancing warrior. This time the left hand forwards. Float the right hand forwards. Lift the back heel. Come into high crescent. Elbows out to the side. Little squeeze. The chest lifts a little. Hands come high. And then down to the floor. Take a breath. Push off the toes. Forward bend. Hands onto the hips and we lift. Hands to the heart. Soften the knees again. Take a little breath. Right back for the lunge. Drop the heel in. Open into our warrior two. Hands into the heart as we breathe in. Use the exhale for advanced warrior forwards. Float the arms forwards as you spin the back heel. Lift to your high crescent. Use your exhale, elbows out. Little fists. Inhale high. Hands to the floor. Stepping into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips. And exhale, hands into the heart. The placement of that back foot is kind of key to keeping your balance when you move from the warrior twos to your crescent. We'll take the left foot back, drop the heel in, a bit wobbly today. Hands into warrior two and then to the heart. Rotate, extend out towards the front of the mat. Lift the heel as both hands come forwards. Slow lift up. Crescent. Chest opens, hands come high. Down to the floor we go. Take a little breath and into that forward bend again. Hands onto the hips and we let ourselves lift. Or add a humble warrior. Hands to the heart. Start from the knees. Right foot back on the lunge. Adjust if you need to. Drop the heel in, open up into your warrior two. Hands to your heart. Rotate forwards. Advancing warrior. Bend the back heel. Allow the hands to come forwards. Slowly lift to your high crescent. Elbows out to the side. Crescent. Hands come high. Drop the back heel, ready for warrior two. Hands behind your back. Rotate the chest again towards the front of the mat. And hinge over the hips. Taking the hands towards the sky. Bring the hands to the floor. Spin the back heel. And press to that forward bend. Hands to the hips. Let ourselves lift. Hands to the heart. Soften the knees. Left leg is going to go back. And adjust. Drop the heel in to open for your warrior two. Hands into the heart. Rotate forwards, advancing warrior. Spin the back heel. Take hands forwards into your high crescent pose. Use the exhale, squeeze the shoulder blades together and lift the chest. Inhale the hands high. Allow yourself to open up into warrior two, dropping the heel in. Hands behind your back. Ready for your humble warrior. You turn the chest and hips again slightly forwards. Keeping the hips to the center line. Hands lift to the sky. Well, use the hands to the floor. Then the back heel. And press into the front of the mat. We'll take that around again for both sides. Hands to the hips. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. Soften the knees. Right foot back for the lunge. Adjust if you need to. Open into your warrior two. Again, still a place where you can adjust. Bring the hands towards your heart. Rotate. Lengthen into your advancing warrior. Spin the heel to the sky as the hands come forwards. Into that high crescent. To moon crescent, chest lifts. Hands come high, back in towards the heart. Warrior two, we can open. Hands behind the back. Rotate. And lengthen out over the front thigh. Bring the hands to the floor. Spin the heel. Take a breath. Press into the front of the mat. Hands under the hips. Lift. Last side. Hands come high into the heart. Soften the knees. Left leg goes back. Warrior two to open. Hands to the heart. Rotate, advancing warrior. Spin the back heel, bring hands forwards. Slowly lift up, high crescent. Take your time, keep your balance. Elbows out wide and lift the chest. Hands come high. Open up into our warrior two, dropping the heel. Hands behind the back. Rotate. And extend over that front thigh. Pressing into the back foot. The head drops. The legs press down into the floor. We keep the structure of the pose, but press down and ground ourselves. Then hands to the floor. Spin the back heel. Take a breath. Push off the toes to that forward bend. Hands onto the hips and let ourselves lift. Hands into the heart. A few breaths. Now I'll add to that again. From the humble warrior, we're going to bring the hands to the floor. And rather than stepping into a forward bend, we'll step into a warrior three, just keeping the fingertips on the floor so the back leg is raised. Hold that for a few breaths and then move into our forward bend. Hands come high on the breath in. Through the heart, soften the knees. We'll take the right foot back and adjust. Drop the heel in. That's just to open up into our warrior two. Hands into the heart, we rotate forwards, advancing warrior. Spin the back heel, take the hands forwards. Drop into the sit bones as you lift. Use the shoulder back, chest lifts. Hands come high, and then we open up into our warrior two. Hands behind the back. Rotate. It's our humble warrior. The hands come to the floor, and this time they go ahead. Spin the heel on the back foot, lifting to your warrior three, up onto the fingertips. And if the block is at the front of the mat, then you might want to lift up onto that, onto a higher edge, just to give yourself a little bit more lift. You might even want to come up onto the fingertips if you're feeling strong in your hips and your legs today. Okay, we'll soften the front knee, step it into a forward bend, holding in. Hands onto the hips, lift up. Inhale high, hands into the heart, soften the knees, left leg goes back. Little adjustments, opening into your warrior two. Again, just feeling yourself into the pose. Hands into the heart, rotate forwards into that advancing warrior. Front knee stays over the ankle. Spin the back heel as the hands come forwards, we lift. Elbows wide, fists, squeezing the shoulders. Hands come high, we drop into warrior two again, spinning the back heel. Hands behind the back, rotate, into a humble warrior. Bring hands to the floor, take them forwards, spin the back heel, push off the toes. Into a warrior three. Allow yourself to lift onto the block if you feel happy to do that. And if you wish, fingertips on top of the block to get really high. So endeavoring to keep the hips square and the back foot pressing out through the heel as active as you can. The more you focus on that, is to keep your body aligned and parallel to the ground, kind of counteract each other. It makes the pose feel more accessible. It's easier to breathe and it's easier to balance. Strangely, the further away you get from the floor, the easier it gets. Last breath in, we'll soften the front knee, step into that forward bend, fold in deep. Take a little breath as we lift back up towards the sky. Cool. Put hands high on the breath in. Bring hands in towards the heart. Slowly, this time I'm going to fold forwards. Take a breath and send the right foot back into the lunge. Drop the heel again, ready for warrior two. Hands alongside the body. Right hand comes forward as we lift up. Come into our advancing warrior, so hands to the heart. Ourselves to extend out. Lift the back heel, draw the hands forwards to our high crescent, into the moon crescent. Hands come high, and we'll drop the heel in and open into our warrior two. And from there, we'll straighten the front legs for triangle pose. So lengthen out slowly. One hand down towards the ground, one hand high, and chest floating up towards the sky. We rotate through the spine. Come back to warrior two. Lift the hands high. Rotate into a high crescent. Let the hands come to the floor for lunge and step into the forward bend. Bring the hands onto the hips. Let ourselves lift. Come high with the hands into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Taking the left foot back for warrior two. Hands alongside the body to lift up to the heart. Advancing warrior, we rotate and press. Spin the back heel, float the hands forwards to crescent. Moon crescent. Float the hands high. Open back up into your warrior two. Straighten the front leg, hips back a little bit. Slowly lengthen out. Taking our time. And rotating round. And one of the most common problems we see in triangle pose is that the front foot isn't pointing forwards. And the back foot should have the heel further away and the toes a little closer. Quite often the foot is rotated around the other way. And all those things combine to make it a little more tricky to balance. If you can, have the front foot parallel and the back foot very like a warrior two. That'll be easier. We'll come back up to warrior two. Take the hands high. We spin gently into that high crescent, and then bring the hands to the floor. Take a little breath and we step into the forward bend. Hands come onto the hips and we lift. Hands come high through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Take a breath. Right leg back, drop the heel in for your warrior two lift. Hands alongside the body. Take the hand forwards and open up. Advancing warrior, hands to the heart, rotate forwards and lengthen through. Spin the back here, bring the hands forwards on the high crescent. Moon crescent. Hands come high, we open into our warrior two again. Straighten in the front leg for triangle pose, hips go back, and we lengthen out. Soften the front knee, warrior two. Hands come high, we'll rotate again into that high crescent. Use the hands to the floor. Push off the toes into that forward bend. Hands to the hips and let us lift. One more to the opposite side. Inhale. Hands through the heart. And exhale down to the floor. Take a little breath, left foot back. Drop the heel in. Warrior two for the lift. Hands to the heart. Bouncing warrior. Hands come forwards. Heel spins. We lift. High crescent. Moon crescent, just a little arch of the spine. Hands come high. Ease into that warrior two, spinning on the back foot. Straightening the front leg. Triangle pose. Soften the front knee. Come back up. Warrior two. Hands high. Rotate. Hands to the floor. Take a little breath. And press into that forward bend. Hands onto the hips. And we lift up. Again, we'll take a little breather. Going to add to that again. So from triangle pose, we'll see if we can come into a half moon. We'll talk you through it as we arrive. We'll take a breath in. Swing the arms high on the breath. In towards the heart. Hinge down to the floor. Take a breath. Right foot back and drop the heel in. Warrior two for the lift. Hands to the heart. Advancing warrior. In the back here. Hands come forwards. And we lift up. Moon crescent. Hands come high. We rotate and open into our warrior two. Straighten the front leg. Triangle pose again. Exhaling out. Just check your front foot is following the center line of your mat. Allow yourself to bring your top hand down onto your hip. Bend your front knee, take your fingers forwards, step your back foot in halfway. Take a little breath, lean into the front leg, allow the back leg to lift. Allow yourself to take the top hand high. So looking to the floor is going to be easier for your balance. Side is incrementally harder. Feeling that superhero level. And take a last breath. Soften the front knee and drop the back foot to the ground again. Bring the hands towards the front of the mat, and it's a short step into the front of the mat for the fold. Hands onto the hips and lift up. So one more side to play with. Hands come high through the heart and exhale down to the floor. Take a breath, left leg back, drop the heel in, warrior two for the lift. Hands to the heart, advancing warrior. In the back heel, lift into our high crescent. Moon crescent, chest opens, hands come high again. We can open up into our warrior two. Straighten the front leg, triangle pose. Again, just checking the front foot. Now drop the back hand down onto your hip as you soften your front knee. And take your right hand forwards. Draw the back foot in halfway. And then lean into the front leg. Springboard away. Toes are out to the side. Leg hopefully lines up with that hip. Whoops. I lost that as I was talking. Now soften the front knee, drop the back foot down, hands to the front of the mat, and step into the fold. Now I'm going to take the right foot to the back of the mat and walk the fingers around to the long side. Turn the toes in. Take a little breath. See if I can come into a wide leg, deep forward bend. Lifting back up. I'm going to walk the fingers through to the front of the mat. Take a little breath. We'll step into a forward bend. Hands onto the hips as we lift. We'll take the hands forwards and into the smallest of back bends, pressing the feet down, and hands towards the fingers on the back of the mat. Bring the hands back into the heart. The hinge to the floor. And as I arrive, I'm just going to take that block behind the feet, step heels on, turn the toes out to the corner edges, and squat down. It's fine if you get to rest. Whew. Engine towards the heart, and the chest. So allow yourself that privilege to wriggle around a little in your deep squat. If you know that you struggle with these squats because of your knees or your ankles, or even your lower back, you can take a brick and place that underneath your sitting bones so that you're actually sitting in the position, but you're taking the weight out of the knees and the hips and ankles. Just catch our breath a little here. And then we'll begin a little bit of a twist. Okay. So we'll bring the hands to the ground. We'll bring the arms a little more into the inside of the thighs. Fingertips on the ground, just to sort of find a location. And then walk your left hand forwards and out, just a little, so that you can, as you lean in, place the palm flat to the floor. Rotate your chest towards the right side and let your arm just follow the line of your chest. So the hands are kind of crucifix, sorry, the arms are kind of crucifix in the designation to your torso, but the shoulders are easy and relaxed. Top wrist is nice and soft. Just easy stretch out through the fingertips. You can lean into that hand on the floor a little bit. If you breathe in, you're going to find that a bit restricted on the side, but that's the advantage of doing a twist. We'll bring the hand to the floor and take it out to the side again. So you come into a little bit of a sidey bend. Then you twist open and just extend the hand out. And ideally, you want to try and sort of keep your head in a nice equal position, so you're not dropping your head forwards or backwards or leaning out to the side. You've got to try and feel where your spine is a little bit. Allow your chest to keep rotating round, so you're not really pulling with that top arm. It's coming from the center of your body. Anything you're kind of pivoting on that front shoulder. Okay, we'll bring the hands back down to the floor. Cool. We'll just allow ourselves to lift the bottom high. And as we do, the head comes down, so it's a forward bend. We'll lift the heels off the block and just move that out to the side. We'll step back into a down dog. Have a tiny and some stretches. And then come forward into plank and bring the knees to the ground underneath the hips. Now take a little breath. Tuck the toes of your left foot underneath and slide the leg back. And then take it out 90 degrees to the side. Now at this point, you want to try and make sure that the resting leg that's on the ground, that thigh, is vertical, not turned into an angle of some sort. You're going to walk your fingers around to the right side until your right hand is able to easily line up with your right knee. Return your chest to the front of the mat. Allow the left hand to lift up. Press down through the three limbs with contact to the ground. And extend your left hand over towards the right side fully, lifting the chest and the hips towards the sky. Now we'll slowly bring it all back to the floor. So we rotate around, slowly back into that full force position. We'll bring the foot back in. Take a breath. That's just to compose and line up, and then we'll take the right foot back, slide the foot out, walk around to the left, open up the chest, right hand comes high, face down and lift up, and slowly and gradually extend the right arm out. We're keeping the head in line with the spine, so your arm gets very close to your ears. Little Ganesh moment there. The top arm comes back. We roll the chest to the ground, and then walk the fingers around to the long side, to the front of the mat. We'll slide the foot back in. Whew. Take a little breath there. Child's pose. Knees go wide. Sit down onto the haunches. I'm going to bring the hands underneath the head this time. Feeling a bit tired. Nice, easy, long breaths. Turn the hands forwards. We're going to lift into down dog, just tucking the toes underneath. Allow your feet to be as wide as your hips. Turn your right heel in and bring your right foot just a few inches forward so that your foot is able to be completely flat to the floor with a straight leg. And then allow yourself to bend and release your left knee. So now really you've got two hands and one leg taking the strain. You can still lift the hips up, draw the belly in. And the reason we do that is we're going to try and take the weight, get a feeling that we're taking the weight out of that left shoulder and lifting up and back. A little bit of a strange stretch into that rear leg. Then we'll bring the feet back into regular down dog, but just with a little wider stance. And then we'll do the same with the left leg. So from the right, lift up back. So a real challenge for Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha. And then we'll come back into regular old down dog. Bring the knees to the floor. Going to take the block behind, come into Dandasana. So you could do that on the floor directly if you wish, your choice. Just wriggle out through the sitting bones a little bit. Sit nice and tall, roll the shoulders back, get plenty of length in the body. Roll the thighs inwards and flex the toes towards you as they spread. And then we'll let ourselves come back down to the floor. So I'm going to use the block behind the back of the head just because the reality is it makes it easier for me to look up towards the flock. So don't need to have that there, but if it feels more comfortable for your neck and your shoulders, by all means. Just make sure there's not pressing into your neck or your shoulders. You don't want to lose any blood supply at all. Now I'm going to let the knees come in and just take the hands on top of the kneecaps. I'm going to make some nice big juicy circles with the knees in the air. Those hips have taken a lot of loading, a lot of stress, probably have been sinking into those joints a little more because the leg muscles get tired and they're fighting for balance a little bit. So it's hard to focus on pressing down and moving at the same time. I appreciate that. So this is just to kind of give them a bit of TLC. We'll take them in the opposite direction. And then last but not least, before Shavasana, we'll just give ourselves a very gentle, happy twist. So I take the hands out crucifix style in line with the chest, wriggle the hips a little to the left, let the legs go down to the right, head turns away, and we're just going to breathe and relax and yield and let go. And slowly let the legs lift and offset to the opposite side and easy. And bring the legs back up. And last few minutes into Shavasana, which if you needed to, if your spine was feeling a bit sore, it would keep the knees high, feet wide, let the legs roll in towards the center line a little bit. But if the spine is feeling good, you're able to get a really long flat back by wriggling the hips out. Take the feet to the corner edges and then just let the legs go. We'll begin to stretch those fingers and toes. Allow the wrists and the ankles to move around gently as we reconnect our body into a room with our breath. So stretch out in any way that feels good to you. And then we'll let the legs slide in gently, a leg at a time, just keeping the heels connected to the floor so we put as little stress into the body as possible. We'll even let one leg at a time come into the body and just give ourselves the easiest of hugs and rolls around. And then when we're ready on an exhale, we'll just let the legs glide over towards the right side. Take a breath, roll the chest in, use the exhale to float away from the floor. Little disturbance to that nervous system as possible. Sitting tall, easy pose, hands to the heart. Take a little breath in, close your eyes, Slow exhalation, letting the chin drop. And in your belly, draw onto your spine. Simply bow to the floor. As the breath comes back in, let it build your spine. Lifting your head, opening your eyes. Namaste. Hope you enjoyed the ladder dance into warrior threes and half moons. See you on the mat again soon.